I think in the Premier's case, for example, and I put those questions to him, right, around what level of evidence he has about how widespread the issue is. He came back with a number of examples from areas of his province that are highly populated. Because, of course, the argument from businesses is, look, we can't often find people to be in these jobs, local people, because either it's a 24-hour restaurant or it's a rural or remote area. And he came back with a number of examples. Boston Pizza, Starbucks, managers, for example, in the Lower Mainland that were filling these jobs with temporary foreign workers. Is it maybe, not the best course of action to instinctually dismiss his concerns and not actually consider what might be necessary to amend this program, just because you think the rules are stringent?
Oh, look, the rules have become even more stringent. For example, you can't get a temporary foreign worker in a metropolitan census area, an area that has a higher unemployment rate than 6%. So, there are very stringent criteria to be able to apply. What's a bit surprising about the Premier's allegations is, in fact, BC has a list of employers that they approve after the application has been submitted to the federal government. And so they actually control the list of employers that they will allow to use temporary foreign workers in their province. And so I actually just ran into their own Minister of Labour in the House of Commons here today, and I assured him that if there are instances of fraud, if there are instances of concern around specific employers or the abuse of the program, as the Premier is alleging, I want to hear about them, because we have enforcement agents, we have a number of ways that we can investigate these employers, and they do have the right to remove those people from their list of approved employers. So I think we can work together to combat the fraud that the Premier is alleging.
Do I take from that comment, though, that you think that jurisdiction for doing so is in the province's hands, and that the federal government does not plan on making any substantive changes to the temporary foreign worker program? Because the Prime Minister seemed to intimate a few weeks ago at the Cabinet retreat otherwise.
We're always looking at ways to make sure and double check that Canadians are first in line for any work that is available in this country. That I have been clear about, and that the Prime Minister has been clear about. There are areas of the country that really struggle to be able to stay open. You've given some examples, but there are other examples. There are areas of the country that have very low unemployment rate, and, for example, a high manufacturing footprint, that actually not being able to have workers that are from other countries would jeopardize, in their minds at least, the employment of the Canadians that work in those plants alongside the temporary foreign workers. So this is a delicate balance. But again, I will just remind Canadians that the temporary foreign worker program represents less than 1% of all our workforce. And, we continually evolve that program to make sure that it is Canadians first in line for all jobs.
And I do understand the point around the percentage of temporary foreign workers. But there are enormous numbers of temporary residents in this country. And again, you'll see the opposition draw a link to sky-high youth unemployment numbers. And I will, respectfully challenge your government when it said back in March of 2024 that you wanted to reduce temporary residents to 5% of the population. Even when you said that it was 6.2%, it now sits in the first few months of 2025 at 7%. Is it not possible that there is a link between your immigration policy and youth unemployment numbers? And again, why so reflexively dismiss?
Oh, I'm not reflexively dismissing anything, Vassy, because I think that the youth unemployment rate reflects a number of things, including temporary residents, as you point out, students that are here on study permits, work permits that are issued after studies. These are all part of the mix. But I think there are a number of other factors that are affecting youth unemployment. And you may know that we transfer $3 billion to provinces and territories for youth skills development, for youth employment programs. We, of course, invest as well in a number of different ways. And, I'm looking forward to bringing employment ministers from across the country together very soon to talk about what more we do to make sure that we can continue to create jobs that give youth that leg up, that first time work experience, which is often so important, and continue to ensure that youth have the skills they need to seize the changing nature of work in this country.
And I would certainly, I think a lot of young people across this country would be heartened to know that that's something that the employment ministers and yourself are focused on. I guess I would ask, though, have you been focused enough? And has your response so far been to scale? I note a number of announcements you've made since June, but when I look back at the data, the youth unemployment rate was about double the average rate of unemployment since January of 2024. It is sky high right now. It is 14.6%. I know I don't have to tell you, but Canadians across this country are pretty affected by this. 14.6% is the highest youth unemployment rate outside of the pandemic since 2010. Has your response really been to scale, and what more are you prepared to do?
Well, listen, it's a time of anxiety for youth as well. And so, that number reflects two different stories, actually. We've disaggregated that data to get a better sense of which youth are struggling. And indeed, 15 to 19-year-olds, it's about a 20% unemployment rate, and it drops significantly for the 19 to 24-year-olds. Different set of youth, different set of realities, different set of solutions. So from 15 to 19 years old, oftentimes those young people are working. They might be working part-time, they might be in studies. That's why I think some of the additional investments that the federal government makes in workplace integrated learning and things like Canada Summer Jobs and some of the additional skills training for very vulnerable youth in that group are really important. I think the ages of 19 to 24 require us to really focus and ensure that the way that young people are studying is connected to the outcome of a job at the other end. And indeed, there's some really great work happening through the federal government, through the provinces and territories to make sure that youth study, there's a better match between what young people are studying and what the jobs are that are available. And the last thing I'll say, Vassy, is that this government's on an agenda of creating jobs. So we're investing in things like union training, because as we invest in things like major projects, it's really about job creation. It's about making sure that we have the next generation of skilled trades workers, for example. And unions do a fantastic job training young people and attaching them to the workforce.
But with all due respect, Minister, when is all of that stuff supposed to start working? Because the only thing the youth unemployment rate has done since January of 2024 is continue increasing.
Well, look, this is right now. I mean, 4 months ago, this government was elected on a promise to invest in Canadians, to invest in these major projects, and to invest in the infrastructure that our Canadian cities and towns and rural areas need. And through that investment, we'll create jobs. We're also doubling down on the kinds of skills training, the flexibility around skills training. Don't forget, this is the government that's removed interest from Canada students' loans and grants, doubled grants and contributions to students. Those are the kinds of mechanisms that we can do in the interim, and we can also ensure that our alignment with provinces and territories is rock solid. And so we have to continue. The youth are depending on us to continue this work together and really, really focus in on how we better align what they're learning in school, what they're experiencing in their training, and with the available jobs as they exist and as they evolve.
I'll ask the question again, though, Minister, like, when will that start making a difference for youth who are unemployed? I take your point that this Prime Minister has been there for 4 months, but it's just this Prime Minister. Liberals have been in power for a decade.
Well, listen, I think, I took immediate action when I was appointed the Minister of Jobs and Families. I knew by that youth unemployment rate and that disaggregated data that I talked about that young people, 15 to 19, were going to have a very difficult summer. You know that we have thousands of good-paying Canada Summer Jobs across the country that give youth a variety of experiences. We immediately injected another $25 million into that program. And that's the kind of solution that the Prime Minister is expecting us, solutions the Prime Minister is expecting us to come up with in our own portfolios. Urgent action, collaboration with provinces and territories, and really making sure that as these major projects, as its investments in Build Canada Homes, in technology, in a variety of different industries make their way, that youth are there and ready to poised to seize those opportunities.